From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Welcome to the first Walter Dean Myers Award Ceremony for Outstanding Children's Literature. My name is Ellen O, and I am honored to be the president and CEO of We Need Diverse Books. Although the We Need Diverse Books organization is less than 2 years old, the idea behind it is not a new one. There have been many advocates championing the need for diverse books in children's literature for decades. We walk in the footsteps of giants. All that we do builds upon the life work of authors, teachers, librarians, editors, advocates, many of whom are sitting right here in this room. But it was Mr. Myers' last op-ed piece in the New York Times, Where Are the People of Color in Children's Books, that became the catalyst for the We Need Diverse Books campaign, a rallying cry that brought together advocates from all over the country. And the world responded with a loud and collective roar that could not be ignored. I am so honored to be here today to celebrate Mr. Myers' legacy by recognizing a new generation of outstanding authors and their books. And I am proud and grateful to have Mrs. Myers and Christopher Myers here to be a part of this momentous event. Thank you so much. Also with us today are some really important people in Walter Dean Myers' life, like Miriam Altschuler, his longtime agent, and his editors Phoebe Yeh, Regina Griffin, Andrea Davis Pinkney, and Rosemary Brosnan, and Barbara Marcus, who most recently published his Random House books and was his marketer over at Scholastic Books too. So thank you for coming to Washington, D.C. also to celebrate with us. And of course, I have to say that we wouldn't be in this beautiful room if it wasn't for our friends here at the Library of Congress, all the wonderful staff at the Young Readers Center and Center for the Book, most particularly John Cole, Karen Jaffe, and Kaheen Muhammad. Now, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to the Acting Librarian of Congress, David Mao. David Mao oversees the entire library and its various service units to ensure that the library's service to Congress and the American people are provided effectively. He previously served as Deputy Librarian of Congress and the 23rd Law Librarian of Congress, too. So please welcome David Mao.
Thank you so much, Ellen, and good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Library of Congress. I'm very happy to be able to be here for this very special occasion today. Our nation's diversity, of course, is one of the greatest strengths that we have here, and so I think that diversity should be reflected in all of the books that our children read. Now, the Library of Congress, we're, as you probably know, the world's largest library, and we have what we like to call a universal collection, and it's universal in that we not only have books, but we have a variety of other materials, including films, photographs, manuscripts, sound recordings, just to name a few. In our children's collection alone, we have more than 500,000 children's books and other related items. Now, these books are on every subject imaginable, and we welcome visitors to our Young Readers Center so that they can touch, read, and really enjoy these materials. And so I'm really delighted today that the Young Readers Center, which is administered by the Library of Congress Center for the Book, is a sponsor for this event. And you heard of our very wonderful Dr. John Cole, who has led the Library of Congress Center for the Book for very many, many years. And so thank you, John, for making arrangements for this. Now, since 2008, the Librarian of Congress has also appointed an author to serve as the library's National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. And this person, he or she, travels around the country promoting literacy and raising awareness of its impact on the education and the development and betterment of the lives of young people. So we are very, very fortunate to have Walter Dean Myers serve as that ambassador from 2012 to 2013. His platform was reading is not optional. And so this newly established Walter Award highlights the importance of publishing books in which children of all backgrounds can see themselves and honor Walter's commitment to literacy. And we're also very delighted that we can have our very first ambassador with us, John Sheska, who's sitting here in the front row to be here to celebrate this important award. I want to thank We Need Diverse Books for its work in promoting the best in children's literature and for recognizing Walter Dean Myers for his devotion to writing books that enrich the lives of young people and for his outreach to a population at risk. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Donnell Clayton, Chief Operating Officer of We Need Diverse Books. She's the co-chair of the Walter Award Judges Panel. Donnell, who is an author herself, is also co-founder of Cake Literary, a boutique book development company. So please join me in welcoming Donnell Clayton.
Got my phone. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today with my co-chair, Kathy Weinberg, representing the inaugural Walter Award Judging Committee. The 11-member committee had the pleasure of reading young adult novels that followed characters through perilous worlds, their first heartbreaks, and the search for their true selves. But 3 submissions stood out. It's hard to get 11 people to agree on anything, but these 3 special books kind of rose to the top and were unmistakable in their emotional resonance. As the committee discussed these books, I also tested them out in my own library with my students. I gave them copies, especially to my most spirited ones, the ones that say, oh, I hate to read. And then something magical happened. They started to get in trouble in class because they wouldn't stop reading and transition to classwork. They'd fallen into these 3 books, and I think that's the most important quality. And the judges got it right. And when I saw them reading those books, I knew that, and I knew our committee was on the right path. And someone who knows kids really well that I want to introduce is John Sheska. He was the first ever National Ambassador for Young People's Literature by the Librarian of Congress in the Children's Book Council. As the ambassador, Sheska toured the country to raise awareness about the importance of children's literature, and his books were also stolen in droves from my library. So I think he's the most important person to come up here and talk about it. Thanks.
Wow, I don't think I've ever had that compliment before, but I'll take that. Walter told me when I first met him, or maybe this wasn't the first time I met him, but it's this thing that just hit me like a lightning bolt when I met Walter. And he said what became the end of his essay in the Times is, we need to do work. And that thing just felt like it got chiseled in my soul when he told it to me. It was a moment that I think got us where we are right now, which is the most exciting thing. Because Walter was a guy who was not that much of a talker. I mean, he could do the talk, but I loved him for being the doer. He was the guy who actually did things. He's the guy who changed my life when we talked about being the ambassador, going places. And we did the usual places, like to be on TV with Martha Stewart, maybe not such a great thing. A little entertaining, but Walter said, you know where we're supposed to be? In schools that never see an author. We're supposed to be in the prisons. And he would go to those places. He got me into those places. And it just shook me. It was like, these are both like the most inspirational places and the most heartbreaking all rolled into one. And it's the work we're doing right now, which is so exciting, because we're making a difference. And this is the difference we need to make. I kind of love that this is Walter still living. This is him right now, right here. How great is the award just named the Walter? When I heard that, I said, oh man, give me some of that. And I know that he influenced the lives of these guys. I know Jason and Brendan have been around. They did the same thing. They've been into prisons here. They've been into the schools that never see us. And we're that possibility just by walking in. And I think that's what Diverse Books is going to be all about in the best way. Despite what we're reading in the newspapers every day about some people's hand size, Please, dear God, let's not ever, sorry I even mentioned that. Let's not think about that ever. Too late, I just planted that. God, that's bad. But we gotta go better, we gotta go positive. It's up to us to change things. We are the leaders now. We'll show people how it's done. We'll all follow what Walter told us to do. So I just want to leave you with that. Let's hear from the winners here. Congratulations, you guys. This is so exciting. And I'll just leave you with that. We need to do work. Let's do that. All right, who gets to talk next? Let's send somebody else up here. John Cole, do we need to hear from you? Chris. How about some from Chris?
How you guys doing? So what does it mean then to do the work? I'm gonna try to get off here soon because I want to see what Jason's gonna say. What does it mean to do the work? You know, you're in this place, this institution. It's so beautiful. It's so peaceful, as so many libraries are, these like places of peace for us. And I've spent years trying to think, well, why are libraries so calm in that way? And I realized that it's because on all the shelves, in every book, is a fight, is a conversation there's an argument being had. And really, it's got to be peaceful in here because we are surrounded by arguments. We are surrounded by fights. And those fights are a gift to us. These are the fights that our nation was built on. This kind of, if you've ever read the Federalist Papers, you see these intense arguments as to how we should build a nation. Our nation is built on fights. So don't, for a moment, see yourself in this beautiful, beautiful, peaceful institution, but imagine yourself on fight night. Imagine yourself in a room full of fans and bloodthirsty, savage wanters, people who want to see blood, because this is who we are amongst. We are with fighters. Everybody here in this room is a fighter of some sort. Imagine the weigh-in. Imagine the crowd. Imagine my father, who loved a good fight. When we fight, we're asking questions. We're asking important questions. And this is not a straw dog fight of imagined enemies. No, we have real questions and real respected opponents that we want to have discussions with, that we want to engage with. We want to try to change minds and hearts. That's what a real fight is about. And that's what every one of these authors, every one of these librarians, every one of these teachers, every one of these publishers, this is what we do. We fight. We fight for things we believe in. We ask questions. We ask, what does it mean to be behind barbed wire at Manzanar? What does it mean to perform in a Yiddish theater in the Lower East Side and listen to jazz records at night? We ask, what does it mean to protest in Ferguson? That's what the work that John was mentioning, that's what it looks like. It looks like these fights. What does it mean to be in a tiny boat as it comes up on the shore on the beginning of a new life in the United States? What does it mean to hear the first bricks being thrown at Stonewall and hear your name in the crash of the glass? We are fighters here. And this is where the fights happen, in our exchange of ideas, in the discussions that we have. And so, whether you're fighting an acquisitions committee to say this book needs to be published, whether you're fighting to get books into the hands of children and you're a librarian, whether you're WNDB, fighting to have more fights in the world, to have access to the arena of fighting, whether you're an author fighting a stack of words to get in the right order. I know a little bit about fights. I watched Dad fight, I fight, and I'm so excited to be part of this fight, this discussion. And I'm excited to honor the fighters that have fought a good fight in these books. So, so let's get that going. The first person we'd like to honor is Margarita Engel. You talk about a fight, you talk about wings, you talk about a fight of two cultures fighting inside us, and how much that gives us, that fight, that battle inside us, which is in the end the most important fight. You have Cuba, you have the United States, you have the what could be imagined as a fight, but it's really a liberation, because all of these discussions in the end yield liberation for us all. And so Margarita Engel for Enchanted Air, Two Cultures, Two Wings, a memoir. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias y gracias a Dios. I am so incredibly grateful to We Need Diverse Books. Sorry, I'm down here. I forgot that. I forgot I was here in a race of giants, fight of giants. Yes, I'm so incredibly grateful. The Walter Award Committee, my editor, Reka Simonson, Justin Chanda, Candace Green, McManus, and the whole Athenaeum Simon & Schuster Publishing team, thank you, and to the Library of Congress for hosting us. In his how-to book, Just Write, Walter Dean Myers instructed, be brave. Writing a memoir does require courage, because childhood memories can be excruciating, and bringing them back to life is terrifying. Showing them to strangers is especially intimidating. Showing them to family members is even scarier. That is precisely why this honor means so much, because being misunderstood is a writer's worst nightmare, and being understood is the greatest joy. I wrote Enchanted Air at a time when there was no public glimmer of hope for renewed relations between my parents' homelands. During the same week when advanced review copies arrived on my doorstep, President Obama announced a thaw in Cold War hostilities. I promised I wouldn't cry. I take it back. My childhood memories, written as a plea for peace and reconciliation, were suddenly transformed into a song of gratitude. And I'll tell you why I wrote them as a plea for peace, because I thought no U.S. president would ever have the courage to make peace with Cuba. And I wrote it for children because I thought, well, maybe one of these little people will grow up and be courageous enough. I hope it is a book that will not just speak to Latinos with our wide variety of reasons for being unable to visit Abuelita y los Primos, but also to readers from other backgrounds who might feel like a bridge or a storm for any reason. But instead of the poem about how I felt like a bridge of a storm or a storm, I've decided to read Refuge on page 54 because we're in this amazing library, and this poem tells how I came to be a writer. It refers to a time right after my family was interrogated by the FBI for receiving phone calls and mail from my grandmother in Cuba. The ugliness of war photos and the uncertainty of TV news joined the memory of FBI questions to make me feel like climbing into my own secret world. Books are enchanted. Books help me travel. Books help me breathe. When I climb a tree, I take a book with me. When I walk home from school, I carry my own poems inside my mind, where no one else can reach the words that are entirely, completely, forever mine. I hope Enchanted Air might help to inspire some young people to write about their own lives and their own feelings and to find refuge. When I was a teenager, it was easier for a US citizen to walk on the moon than to visit relatives in Cuba. Today, it's not front page news because peace is rarely celebrated by the 21st century media. But yesterday, direct mail service between Cuba and the US resumed after more than half a century. And on Monday, President Obama will go to Havana, proving me wrong. A US president was courageous. And I'm especially happy that he's going to do ordinary things in Havana, like attend a baseball game and treat a neighboring country as a friend. Thank you. Gracias. Y gracias a Dios. Thank you for this amazing honor and for its perfect timing.
The next honoree is, oh, yeah, sure, you should. There are lovely. This is the first Walter Awards, so we haven't worked everything out. The next honorees, they talk about a fight that so many of us have grown up knowing about, but give us new perspectives on. There's the fight within someone, you know, and for me, growing up, Malcolm was that paragon of somebody who was brave enough to fight with themselves. There's one part toward the end of the book where they give a list of names, and this moment of saying, I need to choose my own name. That is the biggest fight. That is one of the fights that we are excited to participate in. And so we're very, very honored to honor Kekla Magoon and Ilyasa Shabazz for X.
Well, first, to Walter Dean Myers' family, God bless you. He continues to inspire me personally, and I would imagine Kekla, but she can speak for herself. To We Need Diverse Books, God bless you for even recognizing these books and the importance of acknowledging the diversity in our country. I mean, this is the melting pot of all nations. To Candlewick, what a phenomenal group of people to work with. It's such an honor to be in this place. To the fellow, well, I don't know if you're fellow, I mean to the winners. Congratulations. You know, a long time ago, I was in a mall with a lot of young girls, and I said, hey, you know, where do you want to go? They wanted to go to Barnes & Noble when Barnes & Noble was big. And so I said, okay, you know, so we go to Barnes & Noble. I said, pick out whatever book you want. And they brought these books to me, and I looked at them, and I had young girls of color, and it was very difficult for me to buy a book for them because I wanted them to open up the book and see themselves in it and have a nice reflection of themselves. And so I set out to write children's book. And then my father's young journey, his adolescent journey, was so misunderstood. You know, he came from a family of activists. They instilled specific values in him that he could grow up and become this, you know, great humanitarian that would circle the globe just in his 30s, a very young man, circle the globe in his 60s, searching for solutions to the human condition that would want to afflict any kind of trauma, psychological pain, challenge to its fellow brother just because of this color in their skin. So, I thought that his life was such an inspiration, not only to myself and my family, but to so many young men and adolescents, and that they could read a book and find themselves in it, and that it would celebrate their leadership, their purpose, their lives. And so I was so fortunate. I searched high and low for so many different co-writers, and I came across this amazing woman, this amazing sister, and we were able to do, I think, a pretty good job, and well, obviously, right? With Exo Novel. I think it's, just so important that our young people recognize the power, their individual power, that they recognize their leadership, that they recognize all of the things that will help our country be the best that it can possibly be. So I personally am so happy and honored, and I thank you so much for this. Tekla?
Thank you. Well, I guess my first thing to say is thank you for choosing me to work with you on this. It was so exciting to have this opportunity, and a little bit daunting to have the opportunity, to try to think from the perspective of someone like Malcolm X, who is held up as, a leader and a humanitarian, and he's celebrated and remembered 50 years after his death, and so that, that task is a little bit daunting and quite an honor to be a part of. One of the things we ran up against in, pitching the book and selling the book was, the question of sort of why do you need this story, right? We all know Malcolm X's story. Well, we don't all know Malcolm X's story, which is another story, but we know what happens, right? We know how it turns out. We know who he becomes. Why do we need something that looks inside his head when he was a young man? And where's the suspense, right? Where's the tension in that story? Because we know it so well as a society in theory. But one of the things we talked a lot about, as we were working, was it's easy to tell a story from hindsight, right? It's easy to look back and say, oh, Malcolm X is this great humanitarian. He was perhaps destined to be that, and we don't know. But when he was 14, he had no idea, right, who he was going to become. He had no idea what was next for him, and he was making choices based on the fact that everything felt really screwed up. Everything was scary. His family was being destroyed by all sorts of things, including institutional racism, and he was up against things he didn't understand, and he had to make choices in that moment and in that space, not knowing what was going to happen for him in his life later. And that, I think, is a message that we really wanted to be included in this book, that as a young person, when you're 14 and everything is screwed up, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the rest of your life. You can make choices. You have power. You have the ability to decide, okay, this is what today is, what's tomorrow going to be. And so to be able to look at a story about Malcolm as a young man, to look at the choices that he was making at that time, which were not the best choices all the time, right? And to say, okay, look at how he turned out, right? What if I can do something? What if I can decide tomorrow I'm going to step up and be a person who makes change in the world? That is something that kids don't always hear, right? That you have power, that you can make choices, that you can change your world. And so that was what we hope readers will take from the book. I hope that people will continue to read and celebrate it and learn more about him. I hope it's a gateway for people to learn about his life and work, and messages that he spoke 50 years ago that are still extremely relevant to our world today, unfortunately. We definitely had an amazing team working with us at Candlewick. Our editor, Andrea Tampa, is brilliant as a reader and an editor and as a colleague and friend. And our publicist, Jamie Tan, has been amazing at getting us exposure for the book and getting us out into the world to talk about it and share it. And we love the cover of the book, and so we wanted to give a little shout out to Matt Rocher, who designed our book cover, and we get a lot of compliments, and it's pretty exciting. But everyone at Candlewick worked together to bring this book to life and make it what it is, and so we're really grateful to be part of that and to be here. And thank you especially, of course, to We Need Diverse Books for honoring the book, for creating this award, for allowing people to have an opportunity to come together to demand what we need for readers, and to be a voice for change, because it's not always one person, right? It has to be a community that comes together. We look at the heroes, we look at the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings and the people who stood at the podium, and that's not what's interesting about what they did. What's interesting about what they did is how they inspired many, many people to stand up. And so we hope that our work and the work of We Need Diverse Books can keep doing that for children and for readers everywhere. Thank you so much.
You know, and I just want to say, sometimes when our young people are in pain, right, they don't make the best decisions. And that's what happened to my father. He was in pain. His father was gone. His mother was gone. His teacher told him that he was an N-word. And there was no one to say, no, 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 you're okay, you're great. We need the adults around us, right? When we're in pain, we don't say, I'm going to go get the best education. Usually we're in pain. Sometimes we say, I'm going to go have a drink. I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. I'm going to go do something that's self-destructive. So I cannot say how important it is that we need all of the adults, all of us forward thinkers, smart, beautiful adults, to really invest in all of our children. I cannot say that enough, but thank you.
Thank you.
What Ilyasa says is so correct. You know, there's so many kids in pain, and there's this thing of like they have these fights inside them. They have these arguments going on about who they can be, who they will be, who they want to be. And history has this way of making the fights that go on inside us happen outside of us. This last few years, of course, in the rise of Black Lives Matter, we see a fight that is essential to American identity happening all across the country. And I'm really excited and proud to announce the winning of Jason Reynolds and Brendan Keeley for All American Boys, the first Walter, that articulates that fight in a very open way on both sides of the equation. This is a place full of fights. This is a place full of conversations, and they had it in a book and gave that book to the world, and we're very, very excited. Congratulations, y'all.
All right. So one thing I've learned in our process together that I didn't know before is that I am type A, and I have written down some words, part of my journey, I guess. But so I want to say a few thanks, and I want to say a couple of words, especially given the idea that I love this idea that these books are fights, and I really appreciate the idea that we need to model that fight for young people, and I just really admire that. And this is a tremendous honor to be here with everyone, and for All American Boys to be recognized in the company of these two powerful books, to be part of the We Need Diverse Books movement that I admire very much. For the book to garner an award whose very name and family fill this room with a legacy of artistic and socially conscious vision and integrity. This is truly humbling, and a word like gratitude just falls short of how I feel. I want to thank the award committee, the executive team, and everyone at WNDB. I almost said that. For the recognition of this book. Wow, I'm going to do it again, too. And for the magnitude of the work that you all do every day. I also want to thank everyone at SNS for the hard work it took to put this book together and get it out on shelves in record time, and for all the work that is still going on to remind folks why this book is important. I especially want to thank Justin Chanda for his eagerness to make this book a reality, and Caitlin Dewey, the third writer of this book, who saw the sculpture in the stone and knew how to guide our hands to get it there. And most importantly, I want to thank Jason for trusting me and a friendship for which I will forever be grateful. Because as we always say, if the friendship is a bust, then the whole book and everything we fought for and cared for is also a bust. And All American Boys is not a bust. It is the single most important thing I have been a part of in my career, just as your friendship is the single most important friendship in my career. I say career because my final thank you is to my wife, Jessie Chafee, whose friendship and love are the most important in my life. I'll just say this then. In All American Boys, at first, Quinn, the white boy, runs away from the violence or the injustice that he witnesses. He runs away because if he begins to process any of it, he may have to make significant changes in his life. The system of law enforcement is unjust. But how can those of us who have the privilege to ignore this ugly reality expect a system that is unjust to change if we don't make the leap to make the necessary changes we must make in ourselves? This is one of the most dangerously powerful aspects of privilege, the privilege to look away, to choose not to engage. There's dangerous power in choosing to not tell a story. The reason we must say Black Lives Matter, and the reason we must say it every day, is because there are already too many missing people. Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Michael Brown. And we cannot let their stories go missing too. We cannot. And Quinn, a person of privilege, must tell another part of the story too. You cannot have an institution that systemically disenfranchises people without also empowering others to systematically benefit from that injustice. Or, put another way, an institution that historically and systematically excludes some voices necessarily empowers others to be systematically included, or put more bluntly, published. So I say this with love, because I want love to beat and hum in my old weather-worn heart like an old Celtic sheepskin drum. Yeah, that's my Irish background. But so I say this with the spirit of trying to call us in and not call us out. Just as the statistics clearly expose the injustice in the world of law enforcement, the numbers are starkly apparent in book publishing too. We need a more diverse workforce, a more diverse array of book reviews and books reviewed, and a much larger pool of diverse authors getting published regularly. WNDB and others are calling for this institutional change, and we should all support them. Institutions are made up of individuals, many of whom are like Quinn, like me. People with privilege, and I look for them to partner with WNDB and change their institutions from within. We cannot run away or turn our heads or hope that someone else will handle it. It's on us too. White folk like me, straight folk like me, able-bodied folks like me, cisgendered folks like me. This is how we join a powerful movement WNDB is leading in the industry. We listen. We partner and listen. We listen some more, and then we get out there and help make the change we know in our hearts must come. So I thank everybody at WNDB for this award, for the recognition and support of All American Boys, and I thank them and cheer them on for their bravery, their leadership, and their vision. Thank you for pushing the world of publishing to become its best self. Thank you.
So it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about, sort of obviously about diversity, leading up to this award. And usually when we talk about diversity, we talk about sort of what we see in the landscape. When we look out into the world, what do we see? When we look onto our bookshelves, in this particular context, what do we see? But I feel like there's another part of diversity, or even whenever we're thinking about anything outside of ourselves, I think it's always necessary to take a moment to think about, like, on the inside of ourselves. And so I've been thinking a lot about who I am lately. Perhaps it's quarter life, some sort of quarter life crisis thing happening. But I've been really trying to hash out like who it is that I am, what it is that I stand for, and what makes up me. And every day I'm realizing more and more that I am an amalgam of the people that I've met, that I'm an amalgam of the experiences that I've had, that I am, pieces of my mother, who is here, and everybody who knows me knows. You'll all know she's in the room. Pieces of my mother. I mean, my mother, she gave me sort of a sense of pride, both kinds of pride. The kind that sometimes to a fault keeps me from asking for help, and the kind that allows me to poke my chest out a little bit and hold my head up and walk the earth like I'm God's child, right? Walk the earth like I'm Isabel's child. And my father, who I don't talk about much, I have pieces of him, his fearlessness. A man in the 60s and 70s who was covered in tattoos, which was unheard of. A man who has always taken his life by the reins and done whatever he wants to do, whenever he wants to do it. My best friend in the world is here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say something to him, and he'd let me know. My dear friend Aaron is here. I've known him for 30 years, and I think about him and how I'm an amalgam. He's a part of that amalgam, a friendship for my entire life. We're so different, two totally different people who have forged a friendship based on respect and love, even as we've grown into our individual selves, not always seeing eye to eye, but always connecting heart to heart, no matter what. Forever and ever. To my first husband, Brendan here. I'm sorry, Jesse, to have to share him. But I tell people all the time that, I come from a family, especially my mother. I come from a family my mother is from the South. Our household was rooted and steeped in our culture. I'm very proud of that. But it's an incredible experience to work and stand next to a person who is outside of that cultural community and look at him and know for a fact that he is the best of what humanity has to offer. It's a good thing. Even my mother, who, when finding out that I was writing this book with him, and I'm gonna put your business out there, but he already knows. The first thing she said was, "Who is this guy? What's going on?" The scars of the South heavy on her. And then she started reading the book, and she calls me and says, "Now, let me get this straight. Did you write all of Rashad, and he wrote Quinn, or did he write some of Rashad?" And I said, "No, I wrote all of Rashad." And she said, "Oh, okay." I was getting ready to say, "Ain't no way that he could have known." And I was like, And then at the end of the book, she calls me, and she says, "Jason, I'm just so proud of Brendan." Which is funny in that she didn't say she was proud of me, but it's powerful. But it's powerful in the sense that she came full circle, right? Brendan was let into the circle of trust. I'm an amalgam of the people that I've met in the places that I've been. I'm an amalgam of all these young people, the young people who are locked away in juvenile detention centers that none of you ever have to think about. The ones who are doing 18, 19-year sentences at 15 years old. The ones who come to me when I'm there and ask me, "Mr. Jason, they all keep telling me I have to change. They all keep telling me I have to make different decisions with my life, but every decision I've ever made, I made because I thought it was the right decision." For the little girl in Philly, Brendan and I were in Philadelphia, who came to me and said, "Mr. Jason, has there ever been a moment where you just wish you could change the color of your skin?" She's there. For the young lady in Germany who I met 2 days ago, who said, "Mr. Jason, do you know what it's like to know that every single person in the world, when they think of Germany, they only think of Hitler?" And for me to, in that moment, wish that that little girl in Philly could know that little girl in Germany, because they're the same. They're experiencing the same thing. I'm an amalgam of the people that I've met. Chris Myers, my people who know we have a very tight relationship. I'm grateful for him. He's fueled my curiosity in a way that not any human being has ever. I've learned so much about refugee boats and African billionaires and Vietnamese embroidery artists I mean, he knows everything. Everything. To the young people that I've met in Tucson, to Michael Brown and his family. I'm an amalgam of all of these things. And what I've learned after thinking about all of this is I realized that the diversity that we have to be discussing as we discuss the diversity that is existing on the outside of us is also the fact that we need to have as many stories as possible to appeal to the diversity on the inside of us, each and every one of us individually. Right? I am not a monolith. There isn't one kind of me. I am all of the people, an amalgam of the people that I've met and the experiences that I've had. My hope, and I know WNDB's hope, is that I can write as many books as I can, not for any solo book to serve as some sort of mantle for some young person, but so that a collection of books can serve as a metaphor for who they are, sliver by sliver, right? That you can like all the things and do all the things, that you can like French fries and really fancy restaurants, that you can like to wear a suit and Jordans, right? That you can like the South and the city, and that that's okay. So that someday when they're my age, they can look at their libraries, they can look at their collections, they've had a lifetime with literacy, and they can say, all of these books are a representation of me, all of them. No matter how different they may seem, each and every one of them has a portion of me. That's my new purpose as of last night, thinking about these things. My new goal is to shift it a little bit. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to WNDB for all of your hard work. You guys have shown me an insurmountable amount of love. To the Library of Congress, thanks for having us. This is awesome. To the committee, thank you all very much. I mean, to Caitlin and Elena, Caitlin is my editor and Elena is my agent. They're the ones who get to see me the way that only my family gets to see me. The ones who know that most of the time I'm extremely anxious, I have terrible insecurities around this work. And they're the ones who get to guide my hand and believe in me regardless. And to everyone else, I just say thank you. My mother needs to know that as I move around the world, there are people who got me, people who love me. So thank you. Got it, Caitlin? Yeah.
We'll take a picture with Margarita.
We're going to have a reenactment. We're getting better by the third.
This is very embarrassing that I didn't know there were stairs over here.
Okay, we'll do a sandwich.
I'm brought back to a day, maybe about 4 years ago, when, maybe 5 years ago, Pop and I would meet in the city most Saturdays and go to the flea market and go through things. And I'd been wanting him to meet Jason for a long time because Jason was my boy and we talked a lot about publishing and wanting to see this, to make a space to have these fights that we had together in the world. And I brought, at that point, Jason had a job, a regular J-O-B job. And I brought my pop into the store, and my pop in his kind of stiff but loving way said, well, you know, you willing to do the work? You know, that kind of thing. And, you know, I flash forward to today, to this thing which I know he would have laughed at. He's like, what you gonna call it, the Walter? That doesn't roll off the tongue. I don't know if I need to be. And I'm happy to see that we're all here doing the work. I'm happy to see how much Jason is doing the work, and Brendan is doing the work, and Kekla and Margarita and Ilyasa, WNDB, the publishers. We are doing the work. We're having these fights. We're having them respectfully and lovingly, and it's exciting to be here doing the work with y'all. And lastly, I'd like to introduce John Cole, someone who's been doing the work for quite some time. I remember I met you with Pop about 107 years ago. No, I'm 107. You must be, I don't know. So John Cole's the director of Library of Congress Center for the Book and chair of the Library of Congress Literacy Awards Program, and great advocate of American letters and literature, goodness in so many ways. So again, we thank you. We thank you all for doing the work, for having the fights, for having them in a real way so that we can have these discussions more and more. I know that the next time I have breakfast with Jason, he's gonna say, man, you know I killed that speech, right? I'm gonna be like, yeah, you did, but I'm find something to fight with him about. John Cole, thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris. I have been at the Library of Congress a long time, not quite 109 years, but I've also written about the library, and I'm always looking for wonderful new descriptions, and now I have a new one. The Library of Congress is a prize-fighting ring, a place for these fights to take place that we're talking about. We're very honored to be able to be part of this. And I have thank yous for all of you for the work you're doing. And I'm very pleased that through the work of the Library of Congress, particularly the Center for the Book and the Young Readers Center, which is part of the Center for the Book, which was created in 2009. It took us a long time. It took us 100 years to figure out, actually, that the Library of Congress needed its own place for young readers, for dealing with people under the age of 16. One bit of history, when this building opened in 1897, this wonderful inspirational building, it's wonderful to have an inspirational program in this wonderful building. The first librarian of Congress had the idea for a juvenile library when this place opened. He died after a year and a half. It had nothing to do with this idea. But in the meantime, this was 1897, the building opened. John Russell Young died in 1899. In the meantime, the District of Columbia Public Library opened, and it's a wonderful place, but it gave the next librarian an excuse for not having a juvenile library. And he said, that's all taken care of by the DC Public Library. So long, I'm doing my wonderful thing. And it took 100 years until 2009 with the support of James Billington, who was the Librarian of Congress, to create a special place for people 16 and under as long as they had an adult with them, which actually is a great advantage because it makes us a family literacy center in this beautiful set of 3 rooms, which I hope you've all seen in this beautiful building. And that is a way that we have been able to use the Young Readers Center as a way to get into the fight, to bring the Library of Congress and its resources and its prestige into the world of young people's literature in an absolutely direct way. And what you've done and what we've done together with this award and with getting it launched at the Library of Congress is helping the Library of Congress in its fight to show that young people's literature is the world that we should be involved in directly, and it makes sense, and it would even make sense to Thomas Jefferson, who had the idea of opening the Library of Congress not just to Congress, but to the nation, so it was available to everybody. But the secret is, which doesn't go in my history books, it's the wrong side of the statement, is we weren't open to everyone. You had to be over 16. And that started back when we were in the Capitol. So we are together part of a history, not only for this wonderful world of diversity that's coming through publishing and writers, but also for the Library of Congress. Being a partner with us is helping the broader cause and really helping American culture and literature and its recognition be part of this wonderful institution. It is inspirational. We now go to another inspirational part of the Library of Congress for our reception. And I just want to mention, as you walk down the hall, our members' room, we're going to be in a very special room, which is the one facing the Capitol, and that's where the members of Congress could come. And it's really kind of a kick, because this side of the building, well, first of all, the building is so magnificent because it was built between 1886 and 1897 when we were flexing our cultural muscle. And we wanted American writers to be recognized. We wanted to out-Europe Europe in the building, and we did. But we also wanted to honor American writers. And so as you walk out through the Great Hall, we're going to walk down this hallway filled with gild. So the gold is here on the side facing Congress. That's the way it was in 1897 when we opened. We're going to go down the Hall of the Muses. Each hall has a different theme and field of knowledge. And so there, the 9 muses are painted, and there's poetry by Alexander Pope in the hall. Then we go through the great main hall, the Great Hall, and that's where, if you look up, you'll see names of writers. On the top, it's all European and world writers. You come down a level, you get Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, you get American historian George Bancroft, and the final stop before we move into the members' room, which is the most fancy room, because it was the members of Congress and we're part of the legislative branch, is the Hall of Poetry. And there we really got tough, part of a fight that was probably going on that we don't know about. And instead of just an occasional American, we split it. And half the poets in the ceiling are European and half of them are Americans. And that's the only way, I think, that Walt Whitman and Edgar Allan Poe got into that ceiling, because they were not popular authors among the people who built the Library of Congress and in that part of our culture. Then we'll be in the members' room, and it's an inspirational room for an inspirational day. I congratulate the winners. I'm so proud of the library, the Center for the Book, for bringing this and combining with you for this wonderful day. And please, let's enjoy ourselves, pretending like for an hour we're members of Congress. Thanks so much. It's been a wonderful day.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.